Alright, y'all. What makes a game underrated, especially on Roblox? Well, I define it as any game that has less than 1,000 players concurrently and doesn't get a lot of love on YouTube. And yes, I will be excluding the ones that include Roblox. Now, before we get started, I'll be critiquing these games based on these elements, the gameplay. So, is it addictive, fun, challenging, replayable? Are the mechanics fleshed out? And is it optimized? 2. The production. Are the visuals completed or clear? Do they have a unique style to it? And do the sound effects or music boost and intensify the gameplay? And finally, the actual review. Does it fit or do its job as a genre? Now, I do have a list in which I've compiled over the past few days, and I realized that most of these games have been extremely popular at some point, or they've been mentioned in other videos. So I'll be excluding them here. Regardless, you should give these games a try and even just start reviewing games in general. But that leaves me with these games, starting off with one, Ghostly Manor. Alright, Ghostly Manor's premise is simple. It is a roguelike co-op game in which you explore haunted houses. Sounds familiar? Mind you, before you can start a run, you can select the difficulty, a specific mode, as well as private lobbies or increasing the lobby size to 6. So what is the gameplay like exactly? Well, you do have two weapons. You have the Stunlight and the vacuum cleaner. The Stunlight's role is to stun the ghosts that are in the room, and the longer you hold, the bigger the stun radius is. Which allows you to use the vacuum cleaner, in which you have to pull back and suck the ghosts in the tank. There are also many ghosts that will try to harm you in these dark rooms, depending on how many floors you go to, or if you're in endless. This includes the orange puncher, purple shrieker, blue grabber, hider, green goober, and the golden ghost. Throughout the many floors in the hotel, you can interact with items either manually or with the vacuum cleaner that can either give you money to upgrade the vacuum cleaner, bombs to shoot at enemies or your friends, keys to access the key rooms, or hearts to heal back your HP. You can also get pesky rats or spiders that will bite you. Some of these items do have this purple smoke around it, which if interacted with, you will spawn ghosts in the room. These only happen in the dark areas. Depending on the mode, you can either do hunter, rush, chase, or rescue mode, depending different types of playstyles. However, after clearing a floor, you will get an opportunity to get tokens, and if you collect them all, you will get a randomized power-up out of these 4. The game also shows you the amount of XP you get through the various actions that you've done throughout the floor. Finally, after you reach the final floor, you will be met with previous ghosts, but also a final boss in which you have to suck it. Now, after the final boss loses a certain amount of HP, it will also have a shield and throw bricks at you. And the only way to break that shield is to throw bombs at it. And that's it. Now that we went over the gameplay, let's briefly talk about the production of this game. For starters, the visuals are very appealing and fleshed out. The Luigi-esque sound effects are definitely there, and I do appreciate its soundtrack. The map layout is fun, but sometimes feel unfair, especially the pool portion. However, this is definitely a fun game to play with your friends. So for the gameplay, I will give it a strong 8 out of 10. The production value an 8 out of 10. And for a final review, I will give it an 8 out of 10. I'll also leave the Discord in the description below. Alright, let's move on to Wave Defense is a wave team-based game in which you fight hordes of enemies till you meet the big bad of the whole map. Now, this wave structure is interesting because as you progress through the map, you have to fight ranged units and special enemies that all have different characteristics. It has a similar wave structure to compare to the King Winter system, except you have no guns or classes. But you got homing spears. Alright, when you load into the game, you have options to choose out of the 6 maps, there's 7 in total, that range from easy to insane mode. Now, once you choose a map, you can start off with the sword, the game's beginner and surprisingly not a trash weapon. You get access to 2 abilities, your stab and your spin, as well as other improvement moves to help you keep your survival. This includes dodging, parrying, and your skill. However, you would notice that there are different colors of numbers appearing when you hit an enemy. These are the game's damage types. In this game, there are various weapons or even abilities that use different damage types. For example, the sword's M1 attack, or basic attack, does slash damage, indicated by the gray number, but the sword's stab attack does pierce damage, or indicated by the red number. Knowing damage types is important because certain enemies have strengths and weaknesses to certain damage types. So if you ever wanted to know what weapon is best for each map, you can always check the Trello. Link is in the description below. Okay, let's go over the progression system, and you see it's very fleshed out. There are weapons that you can get from either purchasing a weapon or from particular enemies. This is what we call enemy drops. You see, some maps have regular enemies drop their weapon, like the bow and assassin enemies in Bandit Hideout. Understand that the developer is not willing to give you it for free, but rather via RNG. However, remember how I told you about the big bad of each map? Well, after reaching the final wave, the boss comes out, and if you defeat it, you can get either their accessory, skill, or signature weapon. However, when fighting these bosses, it is your responsibility to know what their attacks are, as some attacks are undodgeable, indicated by the Sekiro sound effect or the red outline. Or they're even unparryable, in which you have to dodge, and they're indicated by the yellow outline. And notice how I mentioned accessories? It's because that there are accessories in this game that help boost the player in many ways, like boosting the damage of a certain damage type or having a gimmick like the bandit cloak. Accessories are accessible to certain enemies, or you have to craft them. That's right, there's crafting in this game. In the crafting table, you can craft exclusive accessories, skills, weapons, or even materials for these items. You can also craft boss drops too. Wait. Did you not just say that boss drops are obtainable by chance when you kill these bosses? Well, I forgot to mention that when you kill these bosses, you are guaranteed a soul, in which it is this game's pity system. So after killing a boss an X amount of times, you can get their weapon, accessory, and even skill in return for their souls. Speaking of skills, what are they exactly? Well, they are temporary power-ups stronger than accessories that last for a certain amount of time. Just like accessories and weapons, certain amounts of them can either be obtained via purchase or enemy drops, as well as crafting them. You can even get the titles for killing these bosses accessed in the bestiary in the weapon shop. Alright, let's go over Wave Defense Overdrive. For its gameplay, I would say that it's a very enjoyable game once you do get a certain amount of weapons and there's lots of content to go over. Even then, the beginner progression in the game is not that grindy and the game is generally challenging. So for its gameplay, I will give it a strong 9 out of 10. Now, for its production, I will say that it does get the job done, and I do find myself liking some of these boss tracks. But I will admit that I usually turn off the music in the game because I just don't find myself listening to it over and over again. However, I will give this production an 8 out of 10. So, for Wave Defense's final verdict, I will give it a strong 9 out of 10 as a wave-based game. The Discord and even Trello are going to be, of course, linked in the description below. Okay, moving on to Unorthodox Accounting, which honestly seems very, and I mean very unfinished. This is after all based off Ultrakill, which doesn't really take itself seriously. See, it feels unfair for me to review this type of game because it is not at all optimized. Even looking back at the gameplay footage, there's very little to do in this game due to lack of actual gameplay and enemy variety. So do I even want to review this game at all? Well, I do want to give this and Astral Fall a mention because both of these games have mass potential and people should at least try playing them. So instead of reviewing these games, I'll give them an 8 out of 10 for potential. Alright, for this final game, this has been mentioned in other videos, but I feel like it's not only underrated, but rather misunderstood. Of course, I'm talking about randomly generated droids, and I still want to review this game out after all. So, what's it about? Well, to put it simply, it's a roguelike game that uses Roblox's basic combat mechanics to kill droids. You initially play as the Brawler, a character that has two abilities, one that gives you 2 strength and the other that gives you 25 HP. However, these abilities can only be unlocked after a certain amount of rooms are cleared, and this changes throughout the various classes in RGD. Now, going through the many worlds and rooms, your character has to fend off against droids, which can come in many shapes and sizes. It is your responsibility to know what each droid does to lead you to success, and this does include the final boss at room 100, as in each run, each boss is randomized. Also, keep in mind that in every world, they have their own hazards, so be careful of those. After completing a floor, the player can buy swords, ranged weapons, and utilities to help them progress further via circuits. They can also use the recycle bin to reshuffle items in the buying section. Within these buying sections, they can also come in different shapes and sizes too. For example, the workbench has a unique trait to it in which it will allow you to directly upgrade your weapons, the library to give you magical spells, and the lab to create potions. Now, the interesting part is if you complete a floor with either no damage or in a specific amount of time, you get vaults, which allow you to completely choose one of 3 random utilities or the golden circuit. In fact, if you complete the whole run with either taking no damage or in a specific amount of time, you get a badge and access to certain items in later runs. The point is, there are so many ways that you can play RGD throughout its many challenges, as well as unlocking alternative worlds. But after you beat the boss in your run, you get points, which can be used to buy most of the classes in the game. However, you might see that some classes require crown challenges. What are those? Well, crown challenges are RGD's daily challenges, coming in as the regular or advanced versions that recycle every day. They offer specific classes, weight, bosses, and modifiers for the run. These crown challenges will give you 1 crown each to allow you to buy these exclusive classes. Not to mention that if you beat the boss on regular mode, you have access to Ascension 1, and if you beat Ascension 1, then you get to Ascension 2, and it goes all the way up to Ascension 15. However, be aware that when you go higher in Ascension, previous modifiers will stack up to the current Ascension. For example, if you play on Ascension 3, not only will you get the Ascension 1 and 2 modifiers, but you also have to deal with the Ascension 3 modifier as well. This creates a challenging playstyle for players who are bored of the game of playing through regular mode, and also allows them to see if they're worthy enough to get a special class at Ascension 15. Okay, after reviewing most of RGD's content, it is safe to say that the gameplay is also naturally fun. You see, since it uses Roblox's old mechanic system, it allows the game to be simple and easy to understand. You might deem it as boring, but that's why you challenge yourself into speedrunning or taking no damage, as well as trying out other classes to use abilities that will help you throughout the run. Since this game is simple, you can obviously tell that the production value is also simple, in which it executes pretty well. Even if there are annoying enemies and hazards to deal with, you can just say that that's just a skill issue. With that being said, I will give RGD's gameplay an 8.5 out of 10, production value 8.5 out of 10, and as a roguelike, a strong 8.5 out of 10. Their Discord is going to be linked in the description below. Hey guys, Editor Diary here, and I just wanted to mention that there are stats in RGD throughout each run, and you can hover each stat to see what they do, and you get to modify them to your liking. Alright, back to the video. After reviewing these games, I can confidently say that you should try all these games out. I also didn't want to make this video just based off first impressions, but rather through hours of experience throughout each game. On a bigger note, referring back to this list, should I review these games even if they've been mentioned before? Please let me know down in the comments, and as I do appreciate you guys for watching this video, if you click here, you can watch my Redux review on tower defense games on Roblox as a whole. Alright, I'll see y'all later.